And Maggie Haberman joins us now from New York City. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
We have all seen Trump from afar, but you sat down with him 3 times since he left office. And I'm curious, what's he like in person?
Trump can be, and I explore this, very charming. He can be very funny. He can be entertaining. He can be, all of the things that he doesn't come off on his social media posts. That is when he is in salesman mode and he is trying to sell himself or charm whoever he's in front of. We had these 3 conversations. The first one, he was in salesman mode. As I said, he was very aware of the damage that the January 6, 2021 riot at the Capitol had done to his legacy. And, I don't think this part he cared about, but the damage it did to the underpinnings of democracy in the country. He wanted to talk about his record. He wanted to present himself as if none of that had ever happened. I saw him a few weeks later. He seemed to be going backwards in terms of his acceptance of where things were and where he was politically. And then finally in September, he was voluble. He would not stop talking. And, the conversation can, meander and it can be hard to redirect. But he is often in person very different than how he comes off on social media.
Speaking of social media, he has constantly attacked you and the New York Times.
So Maggie Haberman gets a Pulitzer Prize. She's a third-rate reporter, New York Times. But she was wrong in Russia. So was everyone else. They should all give back their Pulitzer Prizes. I don't speak to her. She's fake. And the New York Times is a very dishonest newspaper.
So why would he sit down for 3 interviews with you?
Because he's obsessed with the New York Times, and that really is what it's about. The New York Times is an avatar to him over many decades of the elites in New York City who he felt like didn't accept him, and he wants to see if, as one of his aides once said to me, see if he can get a good story. And that really is what it's about. He's also, and I can't stress this enough, he is more focused than anyone I have ever covered in politics or outside of politics on getting attention and getting media coverage. And, he doesn't actually really subscribe, I think, to the idea that all press is good press because he does get very upset by some of the coverage. But in general, he considers negative attention to be productive too.
And let's talk more about the psychology of Trump. You've studied him for a long time. You've thought about him for a long time. And you kind of whittle down his behavior to a handful of moves. Tell us about that.
Sure. So with Trump, there are these recurring patterns and recurring behaviors, and there's not very many of them. There's the quick lie, there is a diversion of blame, there is an attempt to deflect, and the issue is always just figuring out which move he's using. I mean, one of the things that those of us who covered him in the White House got asked, all of us, over and over again, is why is he doing X, Y, Z? Why did he do that? And sometimes it's not always apparent why he's doing something because he's much more calculating than people realize.
Does he actually believe he won the last election?
It's a really good question, and I get asked that a lot. It was certainly clear in his behavior right after the November 2020 election that he appeared cognizant that he had not won, but that shifted pretty quickly. And now it's just very hard to tell whether this is something he's saying or whether he has convinced himself of it. But he says it so frequently that I'm not sure there's a significant difference.
Did Donald Trump tell you that he took classified documents to Mar-a-Lago? You write about a strange or cryptic exchange with Trump about his letters from the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un.
I asked him in our September interview on a lark, did he take any memento documents? Because he was so proud of these letters from Kim Jong-un and he would wave them around. And we saw that over and over again. He would show them to reporters, he would show them to visiting dignitaries. So I asked him about this and his response was that no, he didn't. He said, nothing of great urgency, no. Then he seemed to volunteer something about the Kim Jong-un correspondence and he said, so I don't have it in front of me, but it was something to the effect of, we have the Kim Jong-un letters. And I was surprised and said, oh, you were able to take those with you? And he just kept talking. And I said, wow. And something. And he registered my surprise and then backtracked and said, no, I think those are in the archives. And in fact, they weren't. But it was just impossible to know what to make of any of what he was saying in that moment. It's much more revealing in hindsight after the August 8th search by the FBI of Mar-a-Lago.
There has been criticism, especially on Twitter, by people who have accused you of withholding crucial reporting about Trump from the public in order to sell the book. What do you say to that?
Books take time. Books are a different process. I wanted to paint a fuller portrait of Trump. I turned my attention to this book in earnest after his second impeachment trial, which ended in, I believe, February of 2021. And it's a constant process of going back, getting more information from sources, finding new things out. If I have information that is confirmed and reportable, my goal is always to put it into print.
Maybe this is true of all New York Times reporters, but you are relentless in your approach to the job. I mean, just counting up the number of stories that you filed on Trump for the Times, 599 stories in 2016 alone. It's staggering, but it's taken a bit of a toll.
Okay, my son will not stop FaceTiming me, so. I gotta call you guys back. What's wrong, honey? You need to spare me. Bye-bye.
We good?
What's going on? So I'm coming home on an 8 o'clock train in the morning.
Sad.
Oh, honey. I love you so much.
You say your biggest mistake was promising your kids that they would get their mom back at the end of the last campaign. That didn't happen. How do you weigh the personal sacrifice with the importance of this story you've been covering?
This is my job. This is what we do as journalists. I think what we do is vitally important. I do think it's important to put it in perspective. There are people who are, serving in wars. There are people who are engaging in medical help for people who have diseases. I'm not suggesting that I'm curing cancer, but I do think what we do is incredibly important. And I do my job with intensity, and my kids know that, and I try to make up for it by being more present now than I was at various points over the Trump White House, and hope that heals some.
One last thing, based on everything you know, and particularly the time you spent with him getting ready for this book, is he going to run in 2024?
I think he's backed himself into a corner where he has to. I think that the fact that I think he would like the presidential protections that the White House affords people as shields from investigation. He also loses relevance. He also loses money if he's not running. So I think he will. Now, his heart doesn't seem to be in it the way it once was. We'll see if that changes, assuming he becomes a candidate. But I still think he's much more likely than not to declare a campaign.
Maggie Haberman, really nice speaking with you. Thank you.
Thank you.